Al Naharot Bavel, Al Naharot Bavel, Sham Yashavnu, Gam Bachinu. We remember thee, Zion. Bezochrenu, et Zion. Shabbat Shalom. The 3 weeks leading up to Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av, are considered a mournful time in the Jewish calendar when we remember our exile al Naharot Bavel, by the rivers of Babylon, where we cried as we remembered Zion and happier times. The words of Al Naharot Bavel come from Psalm 137, which also precede the Birkat Hamazon, our blessing of gratitude that we say after meals that we share together. This is true of the Birkat Hamazon on weekdays. However, on Shabbat, there's a spiritual pivot that happens as we imagine the perfection and the bliss of the world to come. On Shabbat, we begin our Birkat Hamazon with a different psalm, Psalm 126, which begins, Beshuv Adonai et Shivat Zion, that God will reverse our exile and bring us back to Zion, and will be then not like nostalgic guardians of memory, but like those lost in a joyful dream. As Shabbat is upon us, we don't have to wait until we've eaten to make this spiritual pivot. Let's join now in singing Psalm 126, and let this be a Shabbat of gratitude for the things that nourish us and fill our soul, like prayer and song. Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. Az Yamalech Chokbinu, Ushonenu Rina. Az Yomru Vagoyim, Igdil Adonai Lasoti Melech, Shir Hamalot, B'shuv Adonai, Et Shivat Zion, Hayinu on this Shabbat, as we prepare to light the Shabbat lights, the candles, the nerot, we want to honor Judy Campbell, our music and choir director of 20 years. She is tonight observing the yahrzeit of her mother, June, on this Shabbat. June, whom many of us got to know through Judy's memoir, which came out this past year. So we think of Judy at this time and honor her with the lighting of the Shabbat lights as well. We want to send birthday wishes to Norman Zilberberg and also wish you, Norman, and Sally comfort on the yahrzeit of your son Charlie, and comfort to the whole family on this occasion. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat. Amen. We join in the singing of Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem, Malchei HaSharet, Malchei Elyon, Melech Malchei Amachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Roechem L'Shalom, Malchei HaShalom, Malchei Elyon, Melech Malchei Amachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Barakuni L'Shalom, Malchei HaShalom, Malchei Elyon, Melech Malchei Amachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Tzedchem L'Shalom, Malchei HaShalom, Malchei Elyon, Melech Malchei Amachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I had a question this week that I posed in Ihatikva, and that question was just thinking about how we on Shabbat have been worshiping in our homes, and how we're looking at doing that now even on high holidays. And so I think it's important that we find those holy spaces in our home and start thinking a little bit about, if we haven't already, what's the appropriate place in our home to sit and watch a service? And what's a place where we can really feel in the moment, feel a connection with God, feel prayerful? What's a prayerful space in our home? So my question was, what is the holiest place in your home? And what makes it so? And I heard from Ruth just today, and she said, I couldn't give you a specific room, which to me represents the holiest room, or the holiest place in the home. She says, examples of holiness are waking up and witnessing a magnificent sunrise as I throw open my curtains. Daily interaction with God's creatures, from the tiniest to the wallabies. No, not in the house, she says. Plants, and ending the day experiencing magnificent sunsets. I believe that in my home, she says, I am surrounded by constant recreation. God's holiness is everywhere, now appreciated much more. So I hope you'll give some thought as to the holy places in your home. And maybe they're not holy places, maybe they're holy moments, places where you have experienced a holy moment. And at this holy moment, we are going to welcome the Shabbat bride. We're going to welcome Shabbat as if she were a bride. And Uri Kalisher watches the Friday night live stream, and he gets very upset if I don't do the verse that has his name in it. So, which totally understandable. So there's a verse that has his name in it. So listen for it tonight. And Uri, I hope you're listening as well. It goes by very fast. So. Kala Pene Shabbat Nekabela Lechadodi Likrat Kala Pene Shabbat Nekabela Shamor Bezachor B'dibor Echad Ishmianu El HaMeyuchad Adonai L'Shem ol tiferet ve'litila lechadodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela hitoreri ki ba'orech kumi uri shir daberi kod Adonai alayich nigla lechadodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela lechadodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela Boi v'shalom ateret bala gam b'simcha uve'tzola tochemune am segula boi chala lechadodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela lechadodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. And at this time in our service, our thoughts turn to those most recently bereaved among us, and we say these ancient words of consolation. Hamakom yenachem etchem, b'toch sha'ar avelei Tzion v'Yerushalayim. May God comfort you alongside all the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. May God be with you and alongside you as you make your way through these days of mourning. Tov lehodot l'Adonai, ulzamer l'shimcha elyon. Tov lehodot l'Adonai, ulzamer l'shimcha elyon. Lehagid baboker chastecha be'emunatcha baleilot. Tov lehodot l'Adonai, ulzamer l'shimcha elyon. Tov lehodot l'Adonai, ulzamer l'shimcha Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim, b'chochma poteach she'arim, uvitvuna mishane itim, umachalif et hazmanim, umisader et hakochavim b'mishmerotehem barakia kirtzono. Borei yom v'layla, golel or mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or. Uma'avir yom umevi layla, uma'avdil ben yom uven layla, Adonai tzavaot shemo. El chai v'kayam, tamid yimloch aleinu le'olam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ariv, aravim. Ahavat olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha ahavta, Amcha ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot, Chukim u'mishpatim, Otanu limadeta, Otanu limadeta. Al ken Adonai Eloheinu b'shochbenu, uvkumenu nasiach b'chukecha, v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha, uv'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed. Ki hem chayenu, ve'orech yameinu, uvahem nege yomam v'layla, nege yomam v'layla, va'ahavatcha al tasir, mimenu le'olamim. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev amo Yisrael, Ohev amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod, Shem Kevod, Malchuto, Leolam, Leolam Va'ed. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, B'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'odecha, v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavcha hayom al levavecha, v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam, v'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'lechtecha v'aderech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha, Ukshartam le'ot al yadecha, v'hayu letotafot bein einecha, uktavtam al mezuzot beitecha, uvisharecha. Lamaru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai, v'item kedoshim leloechem, ani Adonai Eloechem, Asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, lihiot lachem le'Elohim, ani Adonai Elohechem, Adonai Elohechem emet. In this week's parasha, Matot Maseh, the 12 tribes of Israel decide the promised land isn't for them. They want to reside just outside of it, east of the Jordan River. More on that and how that went over with Moses in my drash a little later in the service. But suffice to say that in the end, tribes agree to prove their dedication to their brothers and sisters and to God's promise by serving as shock troops, the first to enter the land and fight on behalf of the people, of their people, for their space to dwell in it. From this, we learn that maybe it's okay if your promised land is different from that of your brothers and sisters, so long as you do your part to help them keep theirs. ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גאל Yisrael. At this time in our service we pray for all those in our world in need of healing, whether body, mind, or spirit. And in our own community on this Shabbat, that includes Christine Lucas, Molly and Bossy Pakin, Gali O'Connor, Ilana Crawford, Hiroko Arizumi, Ern Isles, Jack Behrman, Dot Tebum, Rebecca Dreyfus, Anna and Martin Rosenbaum, Tony Masters, Tamar Wolf, Dennis Lewis Enright, and Lena Torsch and Joan Hyman. We hold them in our thoughts and prayers for healing on this Shabbat. If there are others you're thinking of, you can whisper their names in your homes at this time. Our blessing applies to all. Misha berach avotenu v'imotenu, hu yivarech otam. May the one who blessed our ancestors bring them blessing too. A complete healing, a refuah shlema. We join in prayer that they may all lie down this night in peace and rise up to life renewed. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'hamidenu malkeinu lechayim. Hashkivenu Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu, ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim. Adonai sifatai tiftach, ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai sifatai tiftach, ufi yagid tehilatecha. Prayer invites God's presence to suffuse our spirits, God's will to prevail in our lives. Prayer may not bring water to parched fields, nor mend a broken bridge, nor rebuild a ruined city. But prayer can water an arid soul, mend a broken heart, rebuild a weakened will. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim v'Koneh Hakol, v'Zocher Chastei Avot v'Imahot, U'mevii geula livnei v'neihem, Leman Shemo be'ahava, Melech Ozer u'Moshia u'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham v'Ezrat Sarah. Atah gibor le'elam Adonai, Mechaye metim atah rav lehoshia, Mashiv haruach u'morid hageshem, Mazriach hashemesh u'morid hatal. Mechalkel chayim bechesed, Mechaye metim berachamim rabim, Somech noflim v'rofeh cholim, Umatir asurim, Umekayem emunato lishenei afar, Michamocha bal gevurot, Umido melech, Melech memit umechaye, Umatzmiach Yeshua. V'ne'eman atah l'chayot metim, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechaye hametim. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kdoshim b'chol yom yihallelu Selah. Ose shalom bimromah, Uyaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imeru amen. Ose shalom bimromah, Uyaseh May the one who makes peace in the high heavens make peace for all of us, for all Israel, and all who inhabit the earth, as we say, Amen. This week, the tribes of Reuben and Gad, G-A-D, decide that they want to in the heart of the promised land, as I mentioned, to which the Israelite people had been marching, all of them for 40 years, but they want to settle in Transjordan, these two tribes, on the near side of the Jordan River from the promised land. They wanted this because there in Transjordan, the land was ideal for cattle raising, and they had amassed quite of cattle through their wanderings over the years. Moses does not take kindly to this proposal from the two tribes. In fact, he grows furious. Transjordan is not the land that he had worked so hard to lead them into. It wasn't part of God's magnificent promise to their ancestors. And Moses worried that God would be similarly incensed. Plus, Moses himself wanted so badly to enter the promised land, but he knew that he was destined to die as God had made clear to him. Now the two tribes who were given the land were spurning that gift, the chutzpah. Moses is only appeased by another promise, a promise that the two tribes make to him. They promise to go in as shaktru, first ones into the land to battle with its inhabitants and help make way for their fellow tribes to enter before returning back to the other side of the Jordan to raise their cattle. That was the deal, and everyone stuck to it. They found a win-win. What occurs to me this year in rereading the story is what a late development this is in the storyline. The two tribes never would have raised the issue with Moses in the early stages of their wilderness wanderings because they wouldn't have had cattle back then. Cattle were a sign of wealth, which they certainly wouldn't have had after serving as slaves to Pharaoh for 400 years. But life changes, and circumstance changes, and our reality evolves from generation to generation, sometimes even within our own lifespan, but nevertheless slowly unfolding over time. The story of Reuben and Gad, G-A-D, can be seen as an example of the progressive Jewish idea of ongoing revelation, an invitation to contemplate the changing factors in our lives. This week it became evident to Reuben and Gad that their reality had evolved so much that the original promise, God's promise, as glorious as it was, didn't actually suit their needs anymore. That's a revelation. And it happens well after the people stood at Mount Sinai. The original promise didn't suit their needs. What an incredible statement for the Torah to make. After all, it was the vision of that very promise, that promised land, that had brought them this far along, out of servitude and into abundance. If oppression was the push behind the narrative of the Israelites in Torah, the pull was certainly the vision of freedom and abundance in the promised land. Now, two of the tribes have said, this is profound, and the lesson so abundant for us today, especially as we come to terms with the COVID era and its impact on our lives, its impact on synagogue life, on our services, and on our high holy days. Evolving realities lead to new revelations, and we can either avoid those revelations when we have them, or we can own up to them and do the work of building a new vision. It's okay to change course and paint a new vision that aligns with your new narrative, your new unfolding trajectory in life. Maybe there's even some sacredness in what we discover when our reality changes, impacting our lives and aspirations. Maybe God is in the revelation that comes with every new reality that we face, and not just at Sinai. Indeed, this belief is what progressive Jewish spirituality is all about. Shabbat Shalom. We turn to Aleinu now. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon ha'kol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד. I'd like to turn things over now to our Vice President, Jeff Wolf, to share some announcements.
Shabbat Shalom and welcome to everyone. We wish a long life to those in our community observing a yahrzeit. I have just a few announcements. You're invited to join us on Zoom tomorrow night for a lovely Havdalah service commencing at 6 p.m. This Sunday, the Boomers Film Group is holding a discussion via Zoom on the 1946 David Niven film entitled A Matter of Life and Death. The discussion commences at 5:30 p.m. on Sunday, and it's recommended that you view the film prior to the discussion. The film is easily accessed via SBS On Demand. The following Sunday, July 26, commencing at 7 p.m, we will be holding the 60th Annual General Meeting of NSTE. Details are available in the Tikva. To mark Tisha B'Av, we will be holding a study session on the birth of synagogues and places of prayer from 6 p.m. on Wednesday, the 29th of July, the night of Erev Tisha B'Av. One more for the diary. JSA presents the Aboriginal Experience webinar on Sunday the 9th of August commencing at 5 p.m. The respected author Thomas Mayor will talk about the Uluru Statement and will read extracts from his book Finding Our Heart. The date again, Sunday 9 August at 5 p.m. Please refer to the Tikva for more information. Shabbat Shalom to everyone.
Thanks, Jeff. And we are going to conclude this evening just before our Kaddish Zoom call at 7:20. We'll conclude this evening's Shabbat service with a melody that was written by Cantor Steve Scher, who died this past week, and it's sadly one of my favorite melodies for Dodie Lee, actually. Dodie Lee Shabbat as a bride when we sing Lecha Dodi, and here at the end of our service we'll sing Dodi Li, which is often sung at weddings, and we'll sing it in honor of Cantor Steve Schur, Zichronoli from. Sorry, I turned it on just now. So I don't think you heard any of that. My apologies. I had turned my microphone off. I'll say what I said before, but maybe I can say it more eloquently this time, which is simply that this past week, sadly, a cantor named Cantor Stephen Schur died, Zichrono Livracha. May his memory be a blessing. He wrote this melody for Dodi Li. At the beginning of our Shabbat service, we welcome the Shabbat bride with the singing of Lecha Dodi, and we'll conclude tonight before we switch to our Zoom Kaddish call. We'll conclude with Cantor Stephen Schur's Dodi Li. His memory be a blessing, as it has been in the lives of Reformed Jewish campers for decades. A popular camp song in nifty camps. We are going to conclude with Kiddush now. If you'd like to raise a cup in your own home as well. Vayera vayivoker yom hashishi, vayechulu hashamayim v'haaretz, v'chol tzivam, vayechal Elohim bayom hashvi'i melachto asher asa, vayishpot bayom hashvi'i mikol melachto asher asa, vayevarech Elohim et yom hashvi'i, vayikadesh oto, ki vo shavat mikol melachto asher bara Elohim lasot. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, asher kitshanu b'mitzvot v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho, v'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron l'maaseh v'reishit, ki hu yom techila l'mikrae kodesh, Zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim, kivanu v'acharta, ve'otanu kidashta, mikol hamim, ve'shabbat kodshecha, ve'ahava uvratzon, hinchaltanu, Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh HaShabbat. L'chaim. And Shabbat Shalom.